For United fans everywhere, this is the ultimate football app for you. For match highlights, interviews, and the best Man United videos and podcasts. Download the free United Reds app now from the App Store and Google Play.
The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
It's a Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it! Bobby Sarr saved it! United again! Ready! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Hello and welcome to United Hour, your official redcafe.net podcast on all things Manchester United. My name's Colin.
I'm Nick.
And I'm David.
Yes, welcome listener, and big apologies because we haven't actually recorded since the 11th of February. Shamefully was the date of the last episode. We are a expanding group of extremely lazy men. And on that note, we are welcoming David G back for his third appearance, who will now hopefully be a regular on the podcast to help us get more episodes out on a more routinely basis. Dave, welcome to you.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate that little intro there.
So the last time we recorded, I believe it was after the Wolves draw, just after the Marbella break. So we have just a small matter of Chelsea, Bruges, Watford, Bruges again, and Everton to go through in minute and painstaking detail. So should be fun. Since those games, Nick, since losing to Burnley, I think it was, at home, we've played 8, won 5, drawn 3, scoring 19 and only conceding 2 goals. I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, no, look, the form is looking good. And, for me, the difference is obviously bringing in a couple of players, especially Bruno, where, all season I've obviously been saying, look, we're severely lacking. And it's not down to Ole, it's down to the personnel. I don't even want to put so much on Bruno because I'm seeing some kind of hyperbole now about, best player in the world and blah, blah, blah all of a sudden. But it's just having anybody with some kind of semblance of creativity playing in midfield that all of a sudden, we look like a different team almost.
We definitely do. And well, the funny thing is, for that, at least for that run, the last 8 games, he was actually only played, 4 of those in the league, 1, 2 in the Europa League. So obviously it's been a huge part of it, but I think the upturn in form was sort of creeping up just before he arrived as well. Maybe it was him in the stands that urged them on. And David, a lot of those fixtures, we played City. Obviously it's tough to read too much into that because it was a nothing game, but there's also Chelsea, Wolves, even Everton was, maybe a well-earned point. So it's not even that we've played minnows. Obviously there were Tranmere and Bruges in there to kind of pad the stats, but it was a tough enough run of fixtures to have that dominant. For me, the thing that sticks out is 2 goals conceded in 8 games. Whatever way you slice that, whoever you're playing, that is something to be hugely positive about, no?
Yeah, 100%. And it's weird how, to say we've only conceded 2 goals, because I don't really remember all those games for being world-class defensive performances. I'm obviously excited that it seems to have turned a corner, and I think the Bruges game and the Watford game, seeing those back-to-back, I don't remember the last time in recent memory where we just hammered 2 teams back-to-back. And I know that Bruges, obviously, they went down to 10 men and they're not the strongest side, but just to come off hammering one team who went on to hammer one of our rivals and then hammering another team in the Europa League, that was really good to see. But when you said that we've only conceded 2 goals, I forgot about that because I don't remember it being anything to write home about for defensive performances. I guess I've maybe just been getting caught up in that Bruno hyperbole as well, and all things attack, right?
Yeah, and the goals came against Everton there, which was a freak goal, really. An absolute blooper from David De Gea, of which there's been a few, as we've kind of picked up on the podcast. And then Bruges, the 1-1 draw. So, they didn't even come in the games where you maybe would have expected them. So I think it's hugely positive. I think it's, Nick, you'll want to tell me this is a big corner turned and it's Ole's at the wheel. It's all good. But
well, look, just talking about the defensive side, I actually think that we'd been defending pretty well for a while, apart from obviously being absolutely abysmal at corners. And that's what had been letting us down game after game, Liverpool, Burnley recently. But it goes back all season. and we're still not great at that. And I think we did give Everton some crazy amount of corners in this game as well.
Nick, we gave them about 7 million corners, and Harry Maguire headed every single one into the stratosphere, which was good to see, because I was like, I think after the 11th corner, I was like, okay, look, we're clearly going to concede a corner here.
Yeah, I know. I was like, how many chances do it? Because every time we give one away, you are just worried now. And there was still a couple of times where, like, we were it looked a bit dodgy, so we're still not dealing with those things that well.
No.
But generally, like, when the game's going on, I think our defending has been pretty good, and especially big credit to the likes of Fred and Matic, who formed a very good defensive shield. So we know they were still lacking on the creative side, but yeah, they weren't there for that. It was more the other players who'd been letting down, Pereira, Lingard, that kind of lot. But yeah, Matic especially, where we'd kind of expected very little from him this season, and had stepped up in a big style. So yeah, with McTominay back, I think it was interesting to see where Ole thought things. And yeah, starting both of them, I think, was quite a surprise it was a surprise to me against Everton, whether he went with this kind of midfield three. And then seeing out, and then I thought it worked pretty well, especially in the first half. But yeah, I think we can expect to see quite a lot of chopping and changing in midfield as it goes forward. So it will be interesting to see what Ole focuses on, because in theory Matic is out of contract in the summer, so I don't know whether Ole sees him as kind of long term or a stopgap.
3-4 months ago, we all would have said, man, it's just great, United's over. We knew the contract was winding down. There was kind of noises of discontent from him personally, from his camp, whatever, on Instagram, whatever you want to call it. But now, I think most people will be looking, is that worth a year extension? What are we saying there? And certainly the noises out of Ole are much more positive than, they were previously, where he'd essentially been frozen out. So it is an interesting one. And I don't think he'd be the worst person to have around next year, in a bit part role. Because I do think there's other players coming through there that would take his minutes, but I think in the cut and thrust of a season where you're going to get as many injuries as we have this year, you'd be remiss to let him go if we weren't signing at a bare minimum one midfielder. But we'll come on to that later. Just while we're on the defence there, Dave, I just wanted to, I think over the last few games, particularly that run that we kind of just talked about, Maguire has just kind of kept coming out of his shell, as I think he has done throughout the season. I think there was a little bit of issues maybe earlier in the year, although I don't know how much you can put that down to him, but he just seems to have grown. He's taken the captaincy, he started to step out a lot more, I think, and kind of dominate on the ball, and seems to be a lot more confident in his position and his head and his general play. For me, he's starting to really look like an 80 million pound player. But Lindelof, what do you make of Lindelof's season? Because I think that's a funny one.
It's weird. I was criticising the both of them for doing the same things for large parts of this season, where it was almost guaranteed that if the ball got anywhere near the touchline and the other player was backing into one of them, they would give away a foul. Lindelof is still doing it, but Maguire was doing it quite regularly, and he seems to have taken that out of his game, where he kind of is just using his intelligence to just hold off when he needs to, and then just try to shadow the guy and step in and nick the ball off him instead of giving away a foul, which obviously leads to us having to defend a set piece, which we're not known as being the best at, right? Lindelof is still making those mistakes. He's done it again a couple of times where he's just coming through the back of guys who he knows are going to go to ground, and 9 times out of 10 he's going to give a foul away. So I think Maguire has kind of stepped away from that, and it's been really, really good to see, because like you say, he's starting to look like he might be worth the money that we spent on him. I don't think he's quite worth 5 million more than Van Dijk just yet, but he's definitely matured a lot. The captaincy's done wonders for him. And he's not like the most imposing and shouting all the time figure, but his composure from the back, you can see it playing into the midfield as well. Like, I don't think it's any consolation that Maguire and Fred's upturning form has kind of coincided at the same time. Maguire's calm at the back and Fred seems much more calm in the middle, right? So if your captain's got that kind of mentality, hopefully his partner at the side of him is going to kind of learn from that restraint and to stop jumping into tackles and putting us under pressure, because I think there is a player in Lindelof. He's been frustrating all season. I don't know if he's doing enough to still justify being in front of Bailly in the team. And I know he's been injured, but we saw what he was like in his comeback v Chelsea, and we haven't really seen much of him since. And if Lindelof keeps playing like he did against Everton, I don't think it'll be too long before we see him get dropped and maybe Bailly coming back in, and that's a partnership I'm probably right now a bit more eager to see than Maguire and Lindelof continuing. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think a lot of people when Maguire came in had reservations about how he and Lindelof would function as a pair because they're not dissimilar. Although Lindelof's nowhere near as dominant physically, neither of them are very quick. Neither of them are very not that ration the challenge is a good thing, but they're not very decisive, combative defenders. They're both more, I think, intelligent defenders, particularly Lindelof. And I just think he's a very difficult one to judge at the moment because I've been a big fan of his for a long time, but this season he has really frustrated me. I think he's been consistently poor on the eye test, basically. But when you also chalk that up, Nick, against the statistics of this year, we are better defensively than any of the previous sort of 3-4 seasons. If you go by XG, we should be performing even better. If you take out the set piece goals, then that makes a huge difference as well. Defending natural footballing situations, opposition attacks, we're doing far better than previously. And obviously that's Wan-Bissaka, and Luke Shaw's had a great upturn in form. But a big part of it's Maguire and Lindelof. But when you watch a game, I just still have such a lack of confidence in Lindelof. I mean, we saw Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who in fairness to him has come on leaps and bounds as a 9, after a couple of seasons with Everton where he's kind of edged into the team, but he really ran him around, and it was so obvious that he just sat on Lindelof. He didn't go anywhere near Maguire the entire game. He played entirely down the Wan-Bissaka Lindelof channel and just caused him so many issues. But within that, Lindelof had a few very good one-on-one, very good decisive challenges, and he's very good, I think, at kind of leading players into alleys where all they can do is kind of hit a shot at the near post, and he kind of blocks off the entire rest of the goal and either hit it wide or De Gea saves it. I think he's a very intelligent defender in that way, and that it kind of maybe looks like he's not very decisive or isn't making the challenge, but actually what he's doing is just minimising the chance on a certain way. But it's very hard to get past that kind of just lack of physicality, the headers that get lost. I mean, what do you make of him? Is it just that there's a bit of an agenda against him, or is he just not up to it?
No, look, I like Lindelof, but I do think that the lack of speed is like one of the big issues between the two of them when they play together, and that's maybe what somebody like Bailly might give us. I mean, I remember saying earlier in the season that when Tuanzebe started coming in the team, that I was hopefully looking for him getting more minutes and really challenging Lindelof, and then he ended up getting injured and is only just now even coming back, and I think he's actually played under 23 games just tonight, so we might see a bit more of him soonish. I think Lindelof is like a solid 6-7 out of 10 player, but I think we can do better in the long term. I think he'll be a good kind of squad option, but I think we should, looking forward, be looking to be improving in that position basically, and somebody with a bit more speed.
Are you saying in the summer, Koulibaly?
Hey,
you saying in the summer Koulibaly rumours are coming back up? You think we should dip into the market for a centre back?
Yeah, I think that we could be looking at somebody. I mean, there's still, like I say, a chance for Bailly. I mean, the problem with him is he's one of those players that you don't know if you can trust his injury record, and we've obviously had a long line of centre backs like that, where Rojo, Jones, Smalling, have all had that same kind of issue. So that's why it's kind of it's difficult to put trust into thinking he's going to manage to play long term. There's definitely a player in there, but yeah, at Chelsea, you kind of saw the best and the worst of Bailly. He did some ridiculous kind of taking on people in his own box, a kind of skill that looks amazing when it comes off, but you know that now and again it's not going to come off and we're going to end up conceding from it. So that's always the kind of problem with a player like that. But yeah, maybe he could be the right kind of partner for Maguire because he offers something quite different, and you need that in a partnership. And maybe that, like you say, is the problem with Lindelof and Maguire, that they're similar in a lot of ways. And we need, you could see there's been several times this season where it's just been a long punt forward that's totally undone us. Even against Everton, like you say, a couple of times Dominic Calvert-Lewin was just getting on. There was long balls they're sending through because they know it's a weakness of ours. And De Gea made a save one time, a couple of other times his last gap things. So yeah, like I say, he's good, but I do think it's an area we should be looking to improve on.
Fair. David, just before we move on from the back line, which we probably don't talk about that much because it's boring, but Luke Shaw, I mean, the wee fat man's doing all right again.
He's been brilliant in the past, like a recent run. I can't think of a bad game that he's had.
You sound reluctant about that praise.
He's left centre back and left back. It looks like he's. Remember just before he got injured, how good he was, like against PSV.
Yeah.
It looks like he's kind of back to that level of being good defensively. I still don't see it as an attacking left back. I just don't know if he needs to be in our setup, especially with Fernandez looking like he's going to be maybe a staple kind of more left attacking mid. And then once we get Rashford back, I mean, looking long term, obviously, and we have him on the left, I just don't know if Sean needs to be that effective offensively. I mean, he can do enough to get by, but I think we have better weapons on that left-hand side, and he gets to just focus on his game, because when he does and when he's on, he's so hard to go past. I actually was surprised this week. I had no idea that Shaw was 6'1". If I had to guess, I'd have said he was maybe 5'10", 5'11" at the most. No idea that he was over 6 foot, and he does well in the air as well. And he's been such a frustrating guy, and you want to cut him some slack because he did suffer such a huge injury, and then there was kind of you can call them psychological issues from coming back from that. But you just see enough of him being like a solid defensive player that you think, just be that every single week. Like, just be solid. So I like the guy. He seems like he's came on a lot, and he's maybe going to live up to the billing that we gave him as an 18-year-old when we gave him all that money. But, I mean, you can't argue with what the guy's done, and he's been partly responsible for that clean sheet tally, not clean sheet, the 2 goals conceded in the past, 6 games or so. So he's doing well, standout performer, and you just hope he can keep it up, because if he does, it means we don't need to go into the market for a left back.
Big time.
Well, also, do you think, it's a bit of a random suggestion, but how about Luke Shaw as a centre-back partner for Maguire?
Maguire plays on the left, though, right? And it looks like he's comfortable on the left.
Yeah, that is true.
That's the thing with Koulibaly as well. Koulibaly's a left-sided centre-back.
Yeah, it is true.
I feel you maybe displace Maguire, who just seems to be coming onto his own. And I don't know what that kind of message that sends when you tell your captain, who's got used to playing one side, or you're going to go play the other side now to accommodate another player. Don't know if that sends the best message, but, I mean, Shaw as a left-sided centre-half seems to have the makings of a good player, right?
Yeah, did you say he's as tall as Lindelof? Whereas you have this psychological thing that he's a fullback and nippy kind of small fullback, but yeah, they're actually a kind of a similar height. And his definitely the defensive side of his game is the strong point, and he still is slightly weak attacking. When you see Brandon Williams come in, you see the big difference that you get on the attacking side of the game. But obviously Williams is nowhere near as assured on the defensive side as Shaw is.
Yeah. I mean, I think the 3 at the back makes him look a better centre-back than he is, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure if you played him in a 2 that you'd see the same confidence and security that we have seen when he's played in that role. But I mean, when you do see him in that formation, the way he steps out with the ball, I think I've been hugely impressed by. I agree with you, David. He's not really that out and out wing play kind of fullback that you would want. It's very rare. He doesn't really want to get to the byline and put in crosses. He wants to play in little triangles and kind of surge forward, and in a way almost look much better doing that through the centre of the pitch than he does down the left hand side. So that's a little bit of a conundrum, but I felt after those performances he kind of took that confidence in terms of stepping out and being a bit more dynamic into the left back role. And I mean, if he carries it on for the rest of the season, it'd be great to see. I mean, it's easier now when you do have Brandon Williams, who's kind of, I suppose, returned back down to earth a little bit after a few very good breakout performances. He's kind of struggled a bit in his more recent starts, and certainly seems to be solidly second choice to Shaw, which I think a lot of people had gotten a bit carried away with, as we mentioned on the pod, that he wasn't just going to step in and produce that level of performance every single week. So no massive issues at left back at the moment, you're right. Nick, Tony Martial, this is a bit of a mad one. So he, much like we just discussed with Lindelof, he just divides opinion so much and seems to rile up so many United fans. And then on the other hand, you have the sort of, I think, Martial FC, the people who just, see a lot in him and just want to defend him to the absolute hilt, to the point of maybe not quite being fair or realistic with what they're saying either. He's had 22 appearances this season. He's missed 6 games through injury, but in those 22 appearances, one appearance off the bench, he's got 15 goals and 5 assists as a number 9. It's certainly not bad. It's not a bad record for anyone. It's maybe not elite Manchester United, but in the Manchester United team that's sitting 5th or 6th and doesn't create that many chances, I mean, that record's pretty good. Yeah,
look, his scoring record and stats are good. And, you're comparing somebody like Rashford, they're not that far off, whereas obviously we're talking about Rashford having the greatest season.
Well, I mean, if you take free kicks and penalties, away from Rashford, Martial has more in basically the same minutes, and yet yes, we are. I mean, the other thing is there's an age gap between them, so maybe you would expect more from Martial. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we all were eulogising about Rashford before he got injured, but actually, stats wise, or numbers wise, there's very little difference. But is there a big difference in what you see?
There is a big difference. I mean, first of all, a lot of the goals that Rashford scored, why he's been getting so much plaudits this season, is because he's made those goals himself. And Martial has, he is a good finisher. He's a better finisher than Rashford for sure. But he's not a natural number 9. And I've said this since day one of this season. I was actually really surprised. I remember going back to our kind of pre-season pods. I was actually expecting Rashford to start our season at number 9 and Martial to be coming in from wide, whereas Ole went the other way round and is more or less stuck with it all season. For me, still, neither of them are really natural number 9s, and I think it's kind of told as the season's gone on. I think Martial has got better at a lot of these things, holding the ball up, seeing him getting some headed goals, and he's definitely improved. And I think, Ole's coaching has helped him on that side. But I still say he's just not natural to that position. There's too many times we've had balls coming across the 6-yard line with nobody there. And you see it already just a couple of times that a player like Ighalo comes in and he is in those positions. He's like, that quote from Ole of the break your nose number 9 forward. And you immediately see the player who knows how to be in those positions. Even against Everton, like when Ighalo came in, all of a sudden Martial seemed totally lost and he wasn't then sure where he was supposed to be. And there was a couple of times where I thought that even though Ighalo was leading, he could have come in and there was chances for him to finish off things there. I right now think Ighalo should come in playing centre forward properly pretty soonish. You can see he's still pretty rusty. He's not ready to be starting every match, but he's just going to offer that right style of player that I think we need. And for me, Martial has to go back to playing on the left side, especially with Rashford out.
Yeah, and then what happens when Rashford comes back? But if Rashford comes back and Ighalo, you say, is a better number 9, then where does Martial go after that?
Well, look, we'll look at that. At the moment, I'm not even sure if, is Rashford going to play again this season? So at the moment, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just saying right now, I would be thinking Ighalo should be starting up front, Martial on the left, and then, Greenwood is your kind of bench option. Maybe we'll talk about him. But in general, I think Greenwood is much better coming in from the bench than when he starts matches. There's too many times he started and we've not seen enough from him. Whereas when he comes on, he seems to score a goal nearly every time, which is exactly similar to what his manager is. For years, we used to say that about Ole, that, when he starts matches, not that much you get from him. But when he comes in from the bench, he's the perfect player. We have to see how it goes from there. But I'd say, as I say, the season's gone. Martial has improved at the number 9, but he's just not natural to that position. And I think he would be way better going back out left side.
Yeah, and I think, in fairness, that big shout of saying that we'd be better off at the moment playing Ighalo number 9, I think you'll maybe get a bit of stick for that, but I actually agree. And in part, I think it's maybe because we haven't seen that much of Ighalo. Okay, so if Ighalo came in and for 4 games he didn't really get up to pace and was struggling in different ways, we may revisit that. But for me, there's been quite a stark contrast in the minutes that he has played, albeit very, very small sample. But he is a proper number 9, and what he does is occupy the 2 centre backs. He stays high up the pitch. He holds the ball up. He brings others into play very nicely. Something I've been very impressed by. And he plays basically between the width of the penalty box. He's not dropping down to the halfway line. He's not coming off to the left wing. It lets everyone else find their natural position so much easier. Whereas I think with Martial as a number 9, he wants to be so involved. He gets so frustrated maybe when he's not receiving the ball because he isn't making runs down the channels and he doesn't quite know how to always make himself available as a 9, that he just drops into the halfway line to play beside Bruno or to play beside Mata, or he drops out to the left to play with Luke Shaw. And what it leaves is this big empty space up front. Then Dan James drifts across to try and fill that, but he's not going to do that effectively. And everyone else's positioning becomes a little bit more disjointed. In a perfect world, it's this free-flowing system, but in reality, it never really actually works out that way. I think, just the little bit we've seen of Ighalo so far, I think it made Dan James be more comfortable off the left when he played there. It made it must have been Greenwood or Bruno or whoever it was off the right, be comfortable, and it gave everyone else more space because Ighalo was just looking after his business, if you know what I mean. He wasn't in anyone else's space or anything like that, and I thought it gave us an immediately better shape. And as you say, the poacher goals, his first goal for United, David, I don't think any other striker at our club scores that goal.
No, I agree 100%, and I know you're saying that Nick might get some stick for it, and you agreed with him. I'd agree as well. I'd put Martial on the left and Gallo up front. I mean, it's not just like they didn't know the profile of player that they wanted when they got Gallo. It's very clear we needed someone up top who knew how to hold the ball up. We've been lacking that for so long, just like a brute of a centre forward that centre halves just can't shove around. And Gallo's really impressed me that way. Like, you can tell, like, the defenders sort of almost back off him after the first time of trying to get the ball from him, because they realise that they're not going to overpower him. And that type of play just opens up so much more space for the more creative players. I mean, Gallo's never going to be that creative link-up player. He's just going to get the ball, drop it off, and then make his run, and not, like you say, stay between the widths of the 18-yard box and occupy the centre halves. I think he's done a great job so far. I think he knows how to play the position better than Martial. I think we need to be playing a three up top if we're going to have Martial on the left somehow. I mean, our problems on the right wing are well documented, but I'd be putting a Gallo in from the start for the next little while, especially against City. Don't think they have the strongest centre halves. I think Gallo is going to be able to bully them somewhat, and get Martial where he seems to favour the most. But Martial he still frustrates me so much. There was I forget what minute it was in, but in the second half against Everton, Shaw had the ball. The ball was clearly going to go down the channel. Shaw had a lot of time and space. Martial was just standing right next to Sidibe. Shaw plays the ball in behind. Sidibe gets like a couple yards start on Martial, and then Martial catches up with him, and then we win a corner from it. If Martial just spins in behind and makes that run, and he had like the centre halves were like 10 yards back, he was clearly onside. He just had no interest in spinning in behind and making that run. And if he does, Shaw plays him, ease the ball down the line. Martial is 1-on-1 with a centre half. He just wanted the ball to feet, and that's his problem. And he doesn't understand how effective he can be with his pace when he gets in behind. Like, there's few defenders that can keep up with the guy. I just don't understand why he doesn't spin in behind more often, because our guys know how to find him, especially down the line. And the way Everton were played into Martial's hands. He was just isolated against Sidibe, who's not the fastest. And in the second half, he never took advantage of it once. And it's just so frustrating to keep on seeing that the guy just consistently wants the ball to feet. And I just don't think our system suits that right now. He needs to be way more dynamic. And when Rashford does come back, hopefully this season, I'd have no qualms with getting Martial back on the bench, Rashford at left and Gallo up top. And not because I have anything against Martial's goal record, like you say. I think that's just more a case of being one of the only guys on the pitch who can score for us recently. And just, I don't think he's been anything special for us, especially recently. Just, I think his goal outlay probably doesn't paint the picture of his performances overall this season. I think he's still been a very frustrating figure. And Rashford, for me, it's a no-brainer to get him on the left. And the way that we seem to want to play right now, Gallo has to go in up top at least until the summer, and then we can address that position longer term, because it's clear the profile of player that we need. And if we are going to be going for the right winger that we assume, I'll hope that we're going to go for in Jadon Sancho, Rashford on the left with Martial as a sub if he wants to hang around and fight for his place, and then like a flat track bully up top, I think is the best system to get the best out of our players, especially our midfielders behind them.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Martial as well, I think like a couple of months ago, especially, it wasn't all his fault. Like, we documented for ages with lack of creativity. He wasn't getting much service. You could see him getting frustrated. And he was still managing to get a couple of goals here and there. As I say, look, his finishing, I think he probably is the best finisher in the squad. I mean, at the moment, let's see how Ighalo comes in. Not seen enough of him yet to really judge. But yeah, Martial as a pure finisher is more deadly than Rashford in similar situations. I'd actually put my money on Martial to score ahead of him. But he just doesn't offer enough. I mean, I was looking at some of the stats. So like, in the Premier League at the moment, for example, Martial is only averaging about 2.5 shots per game, whereas Rashford is hitting more like 3.5, which is like a pretty significant difference. So yeah, even though Martial's got decent stats, he's not giving enough. There's too many times he's going missing. There's too many times he's getting bullied off the ball as it's coming into him. And I'd say it's a kind of experiment to put him at number 9 that in the end has not worked. And I think he's been given enough chances for me to say that he's not going to be a number 9. It does give us an issue long term that if we say both Rashford and Martial are better coming from the left, but at the moment it's not even a problem because Rashford's not available.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do agree. I think it's, you don't want to sink the boot into him because he has been, good in terms of output this year. But as you said, David, or as Nick says, you can cut him some slack early in the season, but I thought Everton was a good example of why he's so frustrating. He had, I think, 0 shots, definitely 0 shots on target, possibly zero shots in the entire game. And there was some fantastic breaking opportunities, and every single time he just seemed to not make the right run or just drift to the left and stand at the halfway line rather than trying to offer a pass. So many times it was either Fred or Bruno breaking into space, and I was looking like, make that run. He just didn't really do it. He just wants it to feet, and I just think he's too comfortable in what he likes to do, that he'll never try or I think we're seeing that he'll never really try and open his game up to learn those other things that would make a well-rounded 9. Though he is still young, and he has been impressive as a 9 in patches this year and in different things. But
yeah, that headed goal he scored against Chelsea, and that was a big win for us. It was a while ago now, so we're not talking about it that much, but that was a huge win for us, and that goal was the goal that made the difference.
Yeah, but you can't hang your hat on one headed goal, I mean, his goal from the half Bruno assist where he lobs the keeper was against Bruges in the 5-0. I mean, that's sublime. I don't think there's many other players in our squad who would do that either. But, it's just, for me, when you see someone, and he has played a good amount of minutes. I mean, he missed 6 games, but he's got 2,800 minutes this season across all competitions. I just think you expect to see more and have less frustration. But I do buy slightly the argument that, before Bruno, he had very, very, very little to work with, total isolation around him in terms of Pereira, Lingard, Mata, James, and, sometimes Rashford. I do think that is part of it. Maybe the rest of the season will bear out more of that. But yeah, I agree. I think Ighalo's the man to come in. And just on Ighalo, I mean, it's just such a nice thing to see him start scoring and to be integrated into the squad, dedicating his goal to his sister, who sadly passed away, just giving the most charming interviews ever. And I mean, I think we're all hoping that he absolutely smashes it and we maybe make this permanent because he's such a cool guy and it's just a really nice feel good thing. But David, if it isn't going to be Ighalo, you said we need a flat track bully. If it's not Martial because he's not really a 9, and if it's not Ighalo because we maybe just shouldn't sign a aging ex-Watford striker, who is it in the summer? Who would you bring in? Who do you want?
That's the thing. I'm racking my brain for the name of who fits that description, and in terms of a realistic signing, I mean, Holland is not going to happen. It might eventually down the line, but I really don't know who meets that description is the problem. Looking at some of the top teams and kind of mid-tier teams in Europe and who's doing well, I don't know who meets the profile of the player that I think gives us the best system. So I would be if Ighalo keeps up what he's doing, I'd be encouraged to make the guy permanent. And then you have an attacking outlet of Greenwood, Martial, Rashford, Ighalo, maybe plus one right winger. I don't think that's the worst to go into next season with, especially if Rashford comes back and picks up where he left off. Martial can stop frustrating us and just become a consistent player. And then Greenwood continues to realise his potential. I mean, our forward line is potentially devastating. I mean, it really is. I think Ighalo could potentially be part of that. I think it's just maybe need to assess him at the end of the season whether or not he's the guy for that role long term. But I think that his characteristics as a player is what we need. I would say someone like Lewandowski would be perfect in that position as well. Someone who can just hold it up. And
I think back to the Mandzukic rumours and watching Ighalo, I thought, you know what, actually, if you played Mandzukic as a 9 in our team, I can really see why we were looking at that, because I just think he's a better quality version. I think he would give you actually so much. It made me really think, at the time, a lot of us maybe recoiled and thought, oh, we don't want that player. But now, and I don't mean that we want, another Lukaku or anything like that. I think Mandzukic is a bit better on the ball than that. But I think you can really see why that was the stereotype that Ole was looking for, and why he was so hot on Haaland, even though he didn't want to come to us. But as you say, it's hard to see that player in world football.
Some players just fit styles.
They do, and some teams just need that one more thing that they don't have. Sometimes I think we have a lot of players trying to do the same thing, and you're just crying out for that little bit of something different in those games. But Nick, obviously, I mean, I'm a big fan of not. The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of not blocking Greenwood's progression. And obviously, you made the very clear point that when he starts, he just doesn't seem quite ready for it. He'll be 80 minutes out of the game basically, and he'll do nice little things, but it's just not enough. And I think that's just part of his learning and development. But I really think he'll make that step up to being much more consistent. I mean, he already has is it 11 goals or something this season? It's something ridiculous for his age. I think he'll make that quickly. So I'm quite fond of not blocking his route. And also, we now have goals coming from midfield. So like Bruno Fernandes, probably going to win the Ballon d'Or next year, do we think?
Yeah, well, that's what I did say. I do want to try and keep like expectations in check on Bruno because, people
You're a
are
Bruno hater.
I'm just saying, look, he's come in. And for me, it's not even about Bruno. It's just so clear now that we were just missing for so long any kind of creativity in the midfield with Pogba being out there. I said all season that I'm pretty sure that Ole was basing his entire system. Everything was based around Paul Pogba being the fulcrum of this team. And for, 90% of this season, he's not been there. So, as you know, I've put our kind of failures a lot on that all year. And I had been looking really forward around Christmas time to Pogba coming back into the team, which never happened. Thankfully, Bruno came in right at the end of the window. And we see the difference it makes just having any kind of creative influence. But he's stepped straight in. Looks as if he's been at the club all season already. That's one of the really amazing things, because I thought, oh, look, we're going to have to give him time. He's come from Portugal, but he stepped straight in there, taken on responsibility. I mean, I was pretty shocked, actually, to see him step up and take a penalty against Watford. I didn't expect it at all. I thought Martial would take it that day, especially I had him in my fantasy team, so I was actually pretty disappointed.
Me too, Nick.
When Bruno stepped
I was
up
livid.
to take it.
I was livid. I was happy enough against Bruges, didn't care about that one. Wasn't interested in that in the slightest. But against Watford, I was like, right, Tony, here we go. Time to slot it in for Columns Fantasy Football. I was livid.
But look, fair play to him. He stepped up. He's taken on responsibility immediately for corners, free kicks, penalties, and look, he's not scared of it. Already looking like the kind of leader as well that we've needed around the middle of the pitch. So fair play to the player. And then I know already the questions are like, oh shit, why didn't we buy him in the summer? What a different season we could have had. But look, I prefer not to look at things like that and just say at least he's here now and let's see how it goes. And then again, the only question mark is if Pogba does come back, where does he fit in with Bruno there long term? I guess similar questions that we've just been talking about, Martial versus Rashford and that kind of thing. But as I say, at the moment, it's not even a question because those players are not available anyway.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I thought against Everton, particularly after we'd equalised, he was the only one that kept looking like he was actually interested in scoring a goal and trying things. I think there was a period when we were 1-0 down up to our goal where everyone was involved, even Matic was smashing things off the bar and all that kind of good stuff. But most of it came from Bruno, but particularly after that, when we levelled the game and just stopped playing for 50 minutes after that, I thought he was the only one, even though it wasn't coming off, because I think no one else was maybe it was tiredness and all that kind of stuff. I know it's a tough fixture, but he was kind of the one shining light, and he actually was quite down on himself after in an interview, saying he should have made more of his chances and the opportunities he had. And I thought he was still a shining light. Sticks out like a sore thumb, David, in the best possible way. I mean, he just doesn't stop running as well, and I don't mean that in the sense that he's like Fred, who just doesn't stop running in a good way, but in a slightly harem-scarum kind of way. But Bruno's is so intelligent. Everything's, pass gets in and he either traps it like it's glued to him, or he straight away gets a flick that always seems to land exactly where he wants to, those little 1-2s, and he just spins, moves off players. When other players have the ball, he's always moving across the pitch, making little runs. He just doesn't stop, and I just think it exposes the rest of our team for the clear lack of movement that we've known exists for such a long time. He's just...
Remember when they had player cam on Sky Sports and you could just watch one player for the entire game? I wish you could watch Bruno for the whole game, because I bet he's probably never not looking over his shoulder. He just always knows where someone is, but when the ball comes to him, he knows how close the defender is, and he knows what way he needs to take his touch or if he needs to lay it off. We saw it with that flick. I think was it against Bruges, the flick that he done round the corner? I can't remember. It was the one that was kind of all over social media when people were saying, oh, look at this guy's the difference what Man United needed. But he's so aware on the pitch just 100% of the time. And he's stepped into, he's a penalty taker, he's a corner kick taker, he's a free kick taker. He's clearly the guy to go to for interviews now. I don't know where he learned his English, but it seems to be pretty good. It's better than mine sometime. But he's just got into that role so well. It reminds me of when Matic first came into the team in his debut, and everybody was just like, that's what we've been missing. A defensive-minded midfielder who can control the game. Yeah. You see Bruno, and he's just...
he looked like a daddy amongst children. Do you know what I mean? He just came in and was like, all right, guys, don't worry. That's
exactly. Sometimes you can just tell when a guy's class. And I know we say like Di Maria when he came for his debut, but you saw him perform well in some games, but it wasn't like the whole package of commitment, dedication, speaking after the games, like lifting players. You never saw that. You just saw individual quality. With Bruno, you see individual quality plus an amazing, perfect teammate. Like, he was the captain at Sporting for a reason, right? He's energised the team, and I mean, like Nick was saying, the conundrum is when Pogba comes back, how do you fit them both in? Well, sorry, Pogba, you're going to have to earn your place. Like, the guy has stepped in and has been better 100%. Than you, 100%. At least for this season for sure. Like, I've seen him do things that I've never seen Pogba do. The ball comes into Pogba's feet, he's taking a touch and thinking, how do I pull off a skill here, then do something effective? Bruno's already looking around the corner thinking, what's the most effective way to get my pass off here? They're such different players, but playing in the same role that we need someone world-class to be in if we're going to be a functioning attacking outlet. So right now, I mean, if they're going head-to-head, I've seen enough of Bruno to say, not Pogba, you're a world-class player, but you're going to have to earn your place. And if you think you're going to walk back into that team now, you can forget about it. Because the guy has energised everybody else on the park. They look like better players because of it. There's more confidence playing the ball out from the back into his feet, because the more he keeps not giving it away, that has an impact on the other team as well. They stop pressing him as hard because they know he's just going to knock it round the corner, and then it gives him space to operate. And we've seen his passing range is good, his shooting range is good. Like, the guy's he's clearly I'm happy to call him a world-class midfielder, because that's what he looks like. And it's to not get him in the summer, it just makes you think, right, you don't want to play on the pass, but would he have made a big difference to our team from what you've seen? Probably. I'd probably put us above Leicester with him in the team all season, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there was a comment made, I think, by Reece in the WhatsApp the other day when we were watching the United match, and he just said he's a City player in a United shirt. And I first when I read it, I was like, oh, that's a bit cheeky, kind of doing us down there, but he's absolutely dead on. He looks like a Sylvie, he looks like a Gundogan with maybe even a little bit more bite and stuff like that. He just looks like he's on that next little level of sharpness.
Guy's just class. It's a shit song. I really don't like his song. I always think it's cringy when we bring old players into songs for new players, like the way we're saying he came from Sporting, like Cristiano. I hate that, and I want him to have a new song. But everything else about the guy, you just love it. Like, how can you not love that face, right?
I don't get too invested in our songs, but yeah, okay. I mean, Nick, the question is, as David correctly points out there, we've gone from maybe being absolutely bare bones midfield crisis to now having an embarrassment of riches, it seems. So we've got obviously Player of the Year for Ed, the pastor. I mean, I think he's undroppable at this stage. I mean, he is operating at what we would have absolutely wished for as a £50 million player coming from the Ukrainian league. I mean, you could hardly have the current level that he's kind of shown over the last.
Yeah, even scored a goal. Yeah, that's always been his issue, that he couldn't shoot at all.
Two
finally got a couple against Bruges at least. Yeah,
and took them well in a complete dead rubber fixture. But I mean, for me, he's undroppable. You have McTominay bulging back onto the scene, with a very good performance, looks back to fitness already, obviously gives you all that passion, all that heart. I think he's got a lot more quality than people give him credit for. Great engine, rarely lets you down. You've got Matic, who's in a resurgence since being brought back into the fold. You have Bruno, who's seems as much an 8 as he is a 10 in Ole's systems, and then you've potentially got Pogba, who's reportedly 50-50 for the City game here, so could be back within a matter of weeks if he doesn't elect to have another surgery. So it quickly becomes a bit of a selection problem, I think, and I think it is going to be a really interesting insight into how Ole wants to move forward. I think David's absolutely right. I wish he would ring Mino and tell him that little speech over the phone about how Pogba has to earn his place back, but I'm not sure that will actually be the case. I mean, Ole has done nothing but absolutely eulogise about Paul Pogba anytime he's asked about him, and I just find it very hard for him. Obviously he'll drip him back in terms of fitness, but I think he slots him straight in there, and there's probably a good argument that you simply can't bench a player like Paul Pogba if you're going to get any kind of anywhere near his best. How do you see that midfield moving forward? I mean, there's more kind of good players than there is places at the moment.
Yeah, look, there's big question marks, obviously, over Pogba and Matic. As I say, Matic's contract is up in the summer. I think there's no coincidence that he's all of a sudden playing out of his skin because he wants a new contract somewhere, whether it's with us, whether it's with somebody else. The Pogba question comes up and again. I still think that he does get a lot of unfair stick. He's been injured, he's been out of the team. When we saw exactly what we've been missing, we'll only know if he gets fit again what Ole's plans are now. At the moment, it's not even an option. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near the team against City because he'd have to play against Derby to have any chance of even being on the bench against City, as far as I'm concerned. So I do not expect him to see him this week. But yeah, if he's getting close to fitness, maybe we will see him in a couple of weeks' time, and then it will be very interesting. I mean, especially because Bruno, in that first games where he first came in, he was forced to play centre mid against Chelsea, right? And now against Everton, he's played very much more like a freer kind of number 10 role. So he's already been in both of these kind of positions. I mean, it's kind of always the conundrum we've had against Pogba as well. Should he play centre mid? Should he play further forward? So there's a lot of similarities in the two players. But yeah, look, a club like Manchester United, we should be having two players like that. It shouldn't be that, all of a sudden Paul Pogba's injured and we have to play bloody Andreas Pereira, who's not even like a poor man's Paul Pogba. He's like even 5 levels lower than that, basically. So yeah, we should be having these kind of options. We should have players on the bench who are like fighting to get in, and that has all season. I've said the problem is the players who are coming in are Lingard, a Pereira, and that's where we're falling down. If we have players on the bench, whether it's Pogba, whether it's Matic, whether it's McTominay, then yeah, that's a good thing to be having, and we should be like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that Bruno's a Pogba replacement, and that's why he wasn't signed in the summer and then was signed in a rush in January when your star player that you want to build your team around hasn't played, 200 minutes. But do you see them playing in the same team? I mean, do you think that'll work just speculatively? I mean, does Pogba play 6 and Bruno stays 10? Is it a 4-3-3? Do we go to the diamond? I mean, I think you would ask a lot of, I assume it would be Fred, but even then, Fred's very dynamic for an actual. I don't ever imagine seeing Fred just holding, because he's just an energizer, but I don't see him ever being that disciplined to kind of do that very well. And McTominay maybe could do it, but then why are you dropping Fred? Why on earth is that going to be a good decision? So I just don't see how the two players, unless you're going to shunt Bruno out left or right, which again I think is a bit of a disservice. I struggle to see with our current players how those two actually fit in the same team.
I mean, I think the one thing that on the last pod as well I said is that Ole taken a lot of stick for not having like a real style and not whatever, but I don't think that's an issue. Like we can even see, against Everton, he's played something totally different. Sometimes we're playing 3 defend centre backs, sometimes 2. So I think there's a lot of space under Ole to be doing different things in different matches. And I've not seen enough yet of Bruno either to say exactly what is his best position. So yeah, I don't see why we can't have times where Pogba can play in a kind of 8 and Bruno plays number 10. Why not? But yeah, it's still early days though, and until you see them both on the pitch at the same time, yeah, it could be as well that they end up getting in each other's ways, that they're wanting to do the same thing, and that it doesn't work at all. It's difficult to really say. You see these situations where what you on paper looks like it works or doesn't work, in reality it's totally different, and until it actually happens, it's really difficult to say. But yeah, I mean, in a way they do seem like very similar players who both have a similar skill set. I mean, from my initial things, I'd say the big thing that Bruno has over Pogba is a much better shot. That was always Pogba's weakness, was his shooting. I'd say that Pogba is still the better passer from what I've seen, even though Bruno is very, very good at it. But yeah, let's not forget, Bruno's only in game 3 or 4, and he's definitely going to get a lot better than he is. So yeah, it's like I say, it's too early to be making judgments about players like that. Same for Igalo. I mean, I didn't want you to say too much earlier on that, but I'm not really thinking about him being like a long-term option at the moment. It's too early days. That kind of player is exactly what we need. On gut feeling, I don't think he'll stay beyond the end of the season, and it'll be somebody else we're looking for. Who it is, I've got no idea.
I agree.
But yeah, look, as I say, for me, it's good problems to be having, that players are fighting for the team and that you actually have solid options from the bench, which is the issue we've had all year going forward.
It's certainly nicer than everyone being injured and not wanting to play for Manchester United. It's definitely a lot easier to deal with, I think, yeah. And, they both could play extremely well together. I mean, Bruno and Mata have looked extremely good together, very much on the wavelength, and can develop patterns of play that I don't think anyone else could get near, in terms of reading each other's movements and stuff like that. And Pogba could be very similarly minded, but from a deeper position, it could go extremely well and could be a big factor in maybe keeping Pogba, although that's me being wildly optimistic and untrue to how I actually feel about the situation, because I would like him to leave in the summer. So, I mean, that's been quite positive so far. Obviously, we are on an extremely good run on paper, but David, Chelsea drop points, Spurs drop points, Manchester United lick their lips and fail to capitalise completely, maintaining what seems like the pattern of the season now that any time we have any chance to make up any ground on fourth, we just go, hey, no thank you, just going to chill here. I don't know if we're trying to lull them into a false sense of security to launch a late campaign for fourth, but it just maddens me every time. The Everton result in isolation, very frustrating game. I was a little bit disappointed with the formation and some of the performances, but equally I thought we just looked tired, and Everton are no mugs under Ancelotti. It was a tough game. We could have lost it right at the end. We could have won it right at the end. Taken in isolation, it's absolutely fine. It's not the end of the world. If anything, you could say it was a good point to dig out at a tough ground. But when viewed in the context of the rest of the weekend, the fact that you're playing last when all these other results, or I suppose Spurs was happening at the same time, but you already know Chelsea have dropped points, and you know that that's happened so many times, and that they just don't actually want fourth. Frank's just going, here, lad, come on, Ole, come get it. And we just don't. To me, that has just become so frustrating, and particularly in light of these tough fixtures coming up. I mean, do you just look at the Everton match in isolation, or do you see this as a bit of a loss of momentum? I mean, are we missing out on valuable chances now to cut that lead, because the season's not going to go on forever?
Yeah, I think I look at the Everton game in isolation. I think the first half we were by far the better team against them, and I think it was more a case of, Ancelotti's I don't know if we'll still call him a world-class manager, but he certainly has been, so that the guy's no mug. They just made a few changes at half-time, and it made it more difficult for us to impose ourselves in the game. They moved our full-backs a bit further up the field so that our full-backs had less space, and they weren't as much of an outlet for our midfield diamond, and they just made it difficult. I actually thought Everton's tactical approach to that second half was really impressive, and they done really well, and I think a draw, all things considered, is probably a fair result. For me, it's just important to stay within touching distance. I mean, once we get Man City and Tottenham out of the way, I look at our fixtures. We've got Sheffield United at home, Brighton away, Bournemouth at home, Aston Villa away, Southampton at home, Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home, and then what could potentially be a really decisive last game of the season, playing Leicester away from home. Current form, you'd be really surprised with anything less than 18 points from those last games. I think that's fair to say. And that could, given the other team's fixtures and their shaky form as well, I think just staying within touch and distance, which we are right now, is the important thing. Because Leicester are going to drop more points and Chelsea are going to drop more points. There's no way they win out to the end of the season. And we do have very favourable fixtures, maybe with a tough Europa League tie thrown in there and amongst all that. But those last 8 games of the season in the league, all very, very winnable, particularly everything before the Leicester game. So I think it's being 3 points behind, given the fact that if you'd said 2 months ago, is there any chance of top 4 being realistic? Pretty much everybody had ruled it out, right? So I'm quite happy that we're
not me.
You hadn't ruled it out. Yeah, to be fair, but you are the optimistic one, right? But I think just staying close is what matters right now, and we've done that. Everton, new manager, new approach, good tactics, and there's some good players in that field as well. I don't look at it as us failing to capitalise on the momentum for that game, but we have been guilty of that in the past. But if you offered me a 1-1 at Goodison before the game, I might have considered it and said, even with the Chelsea result, I might have still considered taking a draw just because of their resurgence.
No way. I think at the final whistle, particularly given the VAR and the way that Everton just won a million corners and how the second half went, then yes, definitely a good point. But if you said to me before the game we're going to draw 1-1 at Everton, are you happy enough with that? I'd be like, absolutely not. Roll the dice again, please. No way. But hey, Nick, you're buzzing. You're happy as Larry. We're going to get fourth.
Yeah, look, we did our predictions right on the last pod. I said 4th/5th, and I'm in the same kind of place. I wouldn't say we're a shoe-in for top 4, but as David said a couple of months ago, a lot of people were saying we had no chance. I think even Colm, didn't you say maybe 2 or 3 months ago that the league season is over for us? Top 4 is out of reach.
It was, mate. Yeah, I didn't expect Chelsea to be so bad.
Yeah, no. So look, just that we're even in there. I mean, I still wouldn't bet on us actually finishing top 4. As I say, 4th/5th is around where I think we're going to be. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be much between those places. And yeah, it is going to be this next run of matches. Our next 3 league games are, what isn't it? City, Tottenham, Sheffield United. Or have we got somebody else in that?
City, Spurs, Sheffield United, but
those
there's
are our next
Lask,
3
Europa League in between.
matches. So all Spurs and Sheffield United, especially, are the teams in and around us. That Wolves all of a sudden have, like, people were kind of expecting them to fall away, I guess, but they're actually coming stronger. And, I think a lot of people thought Mourinho is going to make a big difference at Spurs, but they're really struggling without Kane, without Son, and it looks like both of them out for the rest of the season. Between us, Chelsea, let's see where we go. And I think we're still going to have some inconsistency, especially when we're fighting with the Europa Leagues, FA Cup still going on. But look, that we're even in with a really good chance now, when so many people. If you think back, like we were like 11th, 12th sometimes, even just 2 weeks ago, people were saying, we're 9th, closer to like relegation zone than whatever. So to be, 3
we could be 9th after City and Spurs.
Yeah, it is still very congested. Like I say, 2 matches here and there, it makes all the difference. I'm still feeling that we're going to be going for that. And we still haven't even talked about the fact that maybe 5th place is going to be enough, right? Since we've last recorded, there's been this obviously big news about City's ban. The only, now they're obviously going to appeal against it, so we don't really know what's going to happen with that. But that's going to be a big backdrop to the derby on the weekend as well, right? I don't think enough has been made of this, really. I think people are still kind of trying to work out what happens and don't want to get too excited because of the appeal.
Because we initially get that, wow, City are banned. They've broke the rules. And we're like, okay, what rules are they broke and what does it mean that we're getting 5th place? And then it's just whoosh, no, it's a vacuum now. There's no information coming out whatsoever. All we know is that their lawyers are working really hard and their owners say, hey, don't worry, guys, we got this. After the initial break, there's been a real lack of reporting about it because no one knows. No one's actually made any decisions. And sadly, the way I think I see it going is it was 2 years with a view to an appeal, i.e. it was always 1 year and it won't be sorted out until next year. So they'll just kind of slink through at the end of this season and it won't be 5th place. That's how I kind of see it happening. But if 5th place does go through the Champions League, it'd be great. If we don't get 5th place and 5th place gets into the Champions League, how difficult will that be to bear? I would be livid.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we need to be finishing as 5th at least and then see what happens. The past has kind of showed that when it's happened recently, there's been AC Milan have been banned. I think Galatasaray, I think they all had their bans cut on appeal from kind of 2 years to 1 year. So I think most people are kind of expecting that City's ban is probably going to get cut to 1 season. And whether it's the next season or the season after, it all depends how long the court case takes, I guess. UEFA, when they've gone up into these European Court of Arbitration, nearly every time, whatever result they've given out seems to get cut down. So we have to see whether the same thing happens the next time around. But I think a lot of people don't fully understand as well what it's all about. And, just to briefly touch on it, it's all about the fact that City get all their sponsorship money from related companies to their owners. So, Etihad Airways is an Abu Dhabi company. A ton of their other sponsors are all Abu Dhabi companies as well. And they are effectively owned by the state of Abu Dhabi, even though it is a private enterprise in theory. And everybody knows that they've been inflating these things, but just proving it has been the issue. And apparently there's been a lot of kind of leaked emails and stuff now that proves that they were just basically making up numbers. So it gave them more spending power because you're only, allowed to spend X amount of your kind of turnover. So if they could say they were getting 100 million from Etihad rather than 50 million, then it gave them an extra 30 million to be spending in the transfer market. And, the Premier League have stayed very quiet at the moment, but if UEFA are saying that City have cheated for years, then they should be talking about removing Premier League titles from City as well. Aguero on the last day of the season, I want that title back, thank you very much.
Who gets that? Yeah, you know exactly where that one's coming. Straight to OT.
So look, I think the Premier League are keeping quiet and seeing what happens, basically. But if, City get punished, then the Premier League have to do something as well, as far as I'm concerned.
100%.
Love it. I hadn't considered that in the slightest, Nick, but it's made me feel a lot better about life. So we've got obviously the return of Waza on Thursday. I absolutely cannot wait. I hope we field a decent team so it's not just a bit of a nonsense game, really, because he deserves better than that. long-time listeners will know I'm a big fan of Wayne Rooney and always was. Sometimes slated mercilessly on this podcast a few years ago for just never being able to say anything bad about him because I absolutely love him to bits. But I just think it's class. Love to see him back in English football. He's done pretty well at Derby, a few free kicks, a few goals. Certainly seems to be doing okay when maybe you would have thought that was going to be a bit of a poor move or whatever, but should be a good game. I'm sure it'll get a great reception. It's at Old Trafford, isn't it?
No, it's away. It's at Derby.
Oh, is it away? Oh, I wonder how many travelling fans will have them, but it'll be class either way, so absolutely cannot wait for that. And then obviously there's the big Derby. So how do you see the games going, David?
We've struggled against Derby in the past, right? And with Rooney going to be there as well, it's not an easy FA Cup game. So I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum for you. I was always one of Rooney's biggest critics, could never warm to the guy. Obviously respect everything that he'd done for the club, but there was still, he was an exhilarating and a frustrating player all at one for me, and I did get caught up in a lot of his off the field stuff, which I know has absolutely no bearing or impact in my life whatsoever, and I can't do a damn thing about it, but it did alter my perception of him. Just could never treat him like a hero the way I could with some other guys. As far as the derby goes, it's just going to be interesting to see what Guardiola does, because he knows what we're going to try and do to him. They're going to have the majority of the ball, and we're going to try and hit them on the counter. I just don't know if we have the personnel right now to maybe play the same way we did at the Etihad, not having Rashford's pace up with Martial there, whether we go back to Dan James on the right, Martial on the left, maybe a Gallo up top. Be interesting to see, but Guardiola's he's made quite a few interesting changes this season, just to accommodate the opposition almost. You've seen him put De Bruyne on the false nine against Madrid, and he tore them to shreds, especially in that second half. So he knows how to adapt his formation, and I'd expect to see big changes from them for the game at Old Trafford versus the Etihad. So I mean, it's City, right? If they show up, it's going to be difficult to take anything off of them. You just hope that they put all their efforts into the Champions League. They know they have nothing to play for in the league, and maybe take their foot off the gas a little bit. And if they do, then you can maybe see us sneaking a win. But again, I would probably take the draw at this point, and it's their most difficult fixture for the rest of the season, right? So take the draw, but hopefully City drop off a little bit, and we can maybe squeak a 1-0 or a 2-1 win.
I think the Europa League final against Inter will probably be just as difficult. Nick, I reckon we're going to cruise to a comfortable win against Derby and then get spanked by City. What do you reckon?
I don't think we're going to get spanked by City. I mean, the Derby game's difficult, like you say. It depends what kind of team we put out there. I do hope he does rotate a fair bit. I mean, just to say, just like long-term listeners will know you're a big Wayne Rooney fan, I think they'll also know that I'm definitely not. But yeah, all right, it's nice for him to be back and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really that bothered, to be honest. And also, that
You're two mugs.
I do also have a slight kind of not that bothered about the FA Cup. I really think we have to totally focus on the Europa League and the league at the moment. So yeah, it'll be a heavily rotated team, and hopefully we win and go through. But yeah, I want lots of players to get lots of rest. I mean, the one thing that's annoying me is I don't know why we're playing against Derby on Thursday night. City are playing their FA Cup game on Wednesday night, and they're going to have an extra day recovery than us. So that's something that annoys me. I don't really understand why we're playing this match on Thursday night and not on Wednesday. But yeah, anyway, that's the way the fixture lists have decided. We are way overdue beating City in the league at home. 5 years it's been. I was just looking at it. 5 years, April 2015, when we've last beat them at home in the league. I don't see, we should be winning this game. Ole's already shown tactically we've beaten them twice this season. All right, I know the second one was a bit of a kind of non-event where it was kind of game over already. Yeah. But yeah, that first game where we beat them, people were pretty shocked by it. So I don't see why we can't go and do a job in this match there. It's going to mean more to us than them as well. We need that win more than them. I think probably it'll end up being a draw, but I don't see why we can't win that match. I don't expect Ighalo to start it. I think it'll still be Martial, and then it'll be down to players like Bruno to make the difference. I mean, I will be going to it myself. I've not been to enough matches this season. So as the big game red that I am, I'm going to show up for the Manchester derby. It's been far too long since we've had a result against City at home in the league. And we've even been well beaten too many times. I remember, horror shows under Moyes and stuff like that. Although, Louis van Gaal did get some good results for us against City. And there was that time that we had our comeback as well after being 2-0 down, but that was away from home. I think, like you said, David, hopefully City are having one mind more on the kind of Champions League because they know they're not winning the league this season, whereas the league is still extremely important for us. And yeah, if I had to put money on it, I'd say that game is going to be a draw. But I don't see why we can't win this game. I just think we're kind of a bit overdue actually getting a result. And Ole has already shown that tactically he's the match of Pep. We've beaten them twice out of 3 games this season. All right, we lost that tie over 2 legs, but yeah, he has actually won 2 games out of 3 against Pep Guardiola this season. And I also don't think that we'll sit back maybe as much as we might have done while we were away from home. Now that we have somebody like Bruno who can create, I think we might go for it a little bit more than people might expect. And let's see what kind of thing it comes out from there. So yeah, hopefully we go through in the cup. I personally am not that bothered because for me the big priority is the Europa League and is the Premier League. I have taken some stick before for having a little bit of disdain for the kind of cup competitions, but yeah, for me the reality is it's got to be big focus on the trying to get back in the Champions League next season, basically. So yeah, I'd still think we will against Derby, and look, that City game. I'm hoping just that we at least show up there because last time they've come and played at Old Trafford, it was game over by half time already. And that's just, we'd want to avoid that for sure. I can't see us getting a spanking or anything. You don't think that, do you? You said you thought we might get well beaten by City, but I don't think it will be.
No, I don't think we will get well beaten. I'm just seeing it as a possibility, right? You just never know with them. I mean, they could turn up and just play off the park, right? I mean, they dismantled Real Madrid in that second half. Like, just destroyed them. They looked so good. So you just never know. I would assume that they wouldn't play their full strength team just because it's a derby and they don't need any injuries. I mean, they've already just lost Laporte again, which is huge for them for that second leg, and then later on in the tournament. So maybe expect a weakened team. If they do field any type of weakened team, maybe they decide to finally start Phil Foden in a league game. Then I would maybe make us favourites, especially being at home, and maybe Bruno is able to dominate the midfield. But I definitely don't see them spanking us. It's just always that possibility that they turn up, we make a few mistakes, they get a couple of goals, and then it's just backs against the wall because they keep the ball better than just about any team in Europe, right? But I think if we get at them straight from the first whistle, then maybe get an early goal or get the first goal, then I think we can see out the win, especially the way we've been playing defensively recently. And yeah, like you say, we haven't won at home against them since 2015. That's too long. It's overdue. They don't have as much to play for as we do, and hopefully everything comes in our favour and we can close down that gap on the top 3. And I'm just before we kind of wrap up here, I'm going to change my opinion on where I think we'll finish. I initially said 5th or 6th. Mm-hmm. I'm going to change it to 3rd or 4th. Look at Leicester's fixtures compared to ours. If we can stay within 8, even 10 points of them, and then maybe 3 or 6 of Chelsea, whatever, for the last 8 games of the season, ours are looking favourable. Leicester's, on the other hand, not so much. I mean, they've got to go to Everton away. They've got Crystal Palace at home, should be a win game. Then they've got Arsenal away, Bournemouth away, Sheffield United at home, no easy game. Tottenham away, who knows where Tottenham will be at that point. And then they play us at home. I wouldn't be surprised if that last game of the season against Leicester is the difference between us finishing maybe 3rd or 4th. Because there's no way that, given their recent form, they're going to win out from here. They'll drop more points than us, I'm sure of it. So I'm going to change 3rd or 4th, and maybe Leicester to drop out the top 4.
All right, yeah, that's a big shift. Now you're now more optimistic than me. I'm still sticking at 4th, 5th, basically. But yeah, no, look, that's the difference that a few matches make. Going into that winter break, as I say, I think there was a thread on Red Cafe. People were voting for where they think we'll finish, and it was still in that kind of 5th, 6th, kind of 7th range, was the kind of most popular. And now a win against Chelsea, a couple of other decent results, and it changes the whole picture.
Yeah.
But equally, it could change back again because, it is so congested in that kind of area. But you're right. Leicester lost on the weekend, and all of a sudden you look and you say, oh, are they really out of touch? Whereas, 2 months ago, people were like, well, we can forget about top 3 and it's just fighting for kind of 4th place. But now all of a sudden you say, well, 9 points, it's not beyond doing, especially when we have to play them as well. Look, it's definitely all in play now. Let's see where we go from there.
Yep.
I'm not sure when we will be back. I don't want to promise anything because, we did have way too long of a break on this last one due to various things. We'll try and come back after the City match. But, we've then going into Europa League. We've not even talked actually about the fact that we've drawn Lask, who I'm sure most of us had never heard of, and I had to go and look them up. But current top of the table in Austria. They beat actually Alkmaar, who were in our group, and gave us a couple of semi-decent matches in the group matches. So, have shown some kind of pedigree. But, we'll chat about more of them when we come back. Big matches coming up for us now. City, Tottenham, Europa League, Sheffield United. So, look, in the next month, it's going to make another big difference again. And let's see where we're at. But things are definitely looking positive. Got something back in our midfield. Still maybe even looking at Pogba and Rashford showing up before the end of the season. So, look, still lots to look forward to. Whereas around December time, there was too many people who were saying, our season's over and we should already just be thinking about next summer. So, in the big picture, things are looking decent at the moment. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, right?
Yeah, but you really think people would have learned by now to stop just commenting, it's done. It's like whenever a team goes 2-0 up, you just see people, game over. Then it finishes 3-2 to the other team. I mean, football is just, that's why it's so amazing. It can literally change so quickly. And it just makes more sense to me to err on the side of positivity. Like, I understand it. And like you say, we could easily finish 8th or 9th. Who knows, right? I mean, it's a cluster of teams in there. But the reality is, recently, since Bruno came and just a little bit before that as well, things have been starting to look up. We look like a better team. We're steady defensively, and we're dominating midfields now. Things look good for us. So, err on the side of positivity, and we have a very, very favourable run in to the end of the season. As long as we can stay close enough, I think we'll get there. I fully expect us to be in the top 4. I'm just going to go on record. I'd put a fair bit of money on it. Us getting top 4. I've just seen enough of a change and enough of a drop off in the other teams that I feel like we'll sustain it. These next 3 games are huge. If we can take even 4 points from those 9, the other team drop around us, maybe we win a game, draw a game, lose a game, I'd even be okay with that because I expect the other teams to not win out from here. As long as we stay close, I think we'll do it.
Yeah, this March is huge for us. Difficult March, but then as you say, on paper, it looks like an easier kind of running from there. So let's see what kind of March brings us. We'll, as I say, we'll be back soon. Colm has actually left us, had some kind of difficulties, but managed to get to the end of the podcast, thankfully. Thanks for joining us again, David. And as I say, David is now going to join us and hopefully be a regular member on rotation till the end of the season. And I hope your prediction comes through. And maybe you're going to usurp me as the most positive member of the podcast team now, looking at throwing 3rd place into the mix, which wasn't even an option a few weeks ago.
I will offer good money to someone for a ticket for Leicester away on the 17th of May. That's how confident I am. That's going to be a good game. So I expect that to be fireworks at the end of the season and actually mean something and not just be a damp squid at the end. Us via Leicester, last game of the season, it's going to mean something.
All right, we'll keep a little recording of that and play it back to you then and see whether Nostradamus-like prediction or missed it, Meg.
Awesome. Now, thanks again for having me, bud. It's a pleasure as always.
All right, cheers all. Good night to you. The usual, please do hit us up on Red Cafe with any comments about the show. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. You always appreciate shares, likes, all that kind of stuff. Helps us out to grow the podcast and keep putting out episodes. So good night to you all for now.